Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Scrutiny Performance Committee of Perth and Kinross Council of Wednesday, the 4th of June, 2025. I'm joined by the Vice Convener, I'm Councillor Colin Stewart, I'm the Convener of the Committee. I'm joined by Vice Convener Bailey Alistair Bailey, by the Clerk to the Committee, Miss Molly, and by the Strategic Lead for Legal and Governance, Lisa Simpson. We also have some other officers who are going to attend for items later on in the agenda. Clerk, have we got any apologies or substitution?
Thanks, Convener. We have an apology from Councillor Shires with Councillor Braun substituting. We have a few members joining us online this morning, so when I call out your name, can you please confirm you're present? Councillor Braun.
Yes, I'm here, Kirsten.
Thank you. Councillor Frampton.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Massey.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And Councillor Robertson.
I'm present, thank you.
Thank you. All other members are present in the Chambers, Convener.
Thank you very much. Next item, can I ask if there are any declarations of interest in items before us on the agenda today? Not seeing any. Okay. Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Convener. I'm not sure I should make a declaration of interest, as I have a non-financial interest in Live Active Leisure, which is coming up later in the paper, in the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Braun. I think that's a connection rather than a declaration of interest. But thank
okay,
you for,
fine. Okay, fine.
Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is the minute of the meeting of the committee of the 23rd of April 2025 for approval. Can we agree the minute of the previous meeting? That's agreed. Thank you very much. Items 4 on the agenda is the outstanding business statement. Clerk.
Thank you, Convener. Just to confirm that all actions are now completed.
Thank you, Clerk. Can we agree to remove the completed items from the outstanding business statement? Thank you very much. Item 5 on the agenda is the scrutiny review findings of the committee in terms of adjustments for children and young people with additional support needs. The Vice Convener, Bailey, is going to lead the discussion on this item.
Thank you very much, Convener. Before I do, I just want to check with committee services. I've had an email from a member of the press saying that the video stream isn't working. Can we get some reassurance that's being looked into and that the recording's working in case the streaming isn't working? Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, so the item we have before us here is the report into the detailed findings and recommendations resulting from the elected member-led review of ASN provision in our area. And this is a report that comes forward as a consequence of significant elected member work. So I'll say a few words by way of introduction and then hand over to Lisa Simpson for a more detailed introduction. This review focuses on how the council handles adjustments, especially at times of transition between school stages. Our scope was as follows: to determine how effective the council is at ensuring that adjustments made for children and young people with additional support needs are applied properly and consistently over time and in practice, communicated well when pupils move schools and transition from nursery to primary or primary to secondary settings, and applied in a way that benefits both the council and children through early interventions. Throughout the process, we visited 6 schools to ask questions of leadership and classroom staff. We've spoken in detail with 3 local charities and their service users. And for me, it was also really important that we heard from parents and kids with ASN. So we did that not only through the charities, but through the council's ASN parent network too. This has been quite a journey and quite an eye-opener for many of us. I'm pleased to report that the way that we support children with additional needs is now unrecognisable compared to how it was when I was at school, and far too many people were pigeonholed into so-called special schools. So I'll hand over now to Lisa Simpson for the formal introduction. Thank you.
Good morning, Convener, councillors. This report, which has been authored by me on your behalf, presents the findings of your scrutiny review in relation to the effectiveness of the adjustments which the Council puts in place for children and young people with additional support needs. Given that this is your report, I am not anticipating too many questions for officers, but Fiona Mackay and Jacqueline Meikle are here should you have any points of clarification. For the public meeting, however, I thought it would be helpful just to summarise the review process in a bit more depth and the findings of this committee. Given the breadth and complexity of additional support needs, it was agreed that it would be impossible to take an in-depth holistic look at ASN and support for learning. After some deliberation, the committee agreed to refine the scope of the review as Bailey Bailey, our Vice Convener, outlined, to focus on how effective the Council is at ensuring that adjustments made for children and young people with additional support needs are indeed applied properly and consistently over time in practice, communicated well when pupils move from schools or transition from nursery to primary or primary to secondary, and applied in a way that benefits both the Council and the child through early interventions. As Bailey Bailey outlined himself, turning to the scrutiny review process, it's been one of active listening, data gathering, assessment and analysis. And as part of that process, committee members have indeed engaged in workshops with Fiona and members of her team from within the Inclusion Service and visited schools across both the primary and secondary sector to engage with staff and see firsthand the learning environment. And they have also, most importantly, obtained valuable insights and perspectives from parents, children and families via the ASN Parent Network, Parent to Parent, Perth Autism Support and Perth ADHD. On behalf of the committee, I would like to place on record our thanks to everyone for sharing their knowledge and their lived experience and for their open, honest and constructive engagement in the review process. ASN and additional support for learning has been the focus of recent national research and reviews, which have provided the Scrutiny Committee with useful insights and learning to complement their own assessment and analysis. A summary of the National Review and Research findings is set out in the report by way of providing a valuable context in relation to the complexity and the challenges of the ASL landscape in which we are operating. Unsurprisingly, the challenges, risks, issues and opportunities identified through the National Research and Reviews resonate strongly with the lived experience in Perth and Kinross. This knowledge and understanding has already helped to shape and inform the extensive ASN transformation programme, which is currently underway. This is an ambitious and far-reaching 5-year programme of improvement and redesign, looking to ensure that we have a learning environment that can meet the educational needs of all of our pupils, taking into account that 40% of our pupil population have recorded additional support needs. The scrutiny review findings themselves are set out in section 9 of the report and are grouped under the following themes: support and assessment, transition planning, communication and collaboration, workforce and training, resources and environment, information and documentation, and governance and statutory duties. Based on these findings, the Scrutiny Committee have set out 4 high-level recommendations and identified some key actions. Recommendation 1 relates to ensuring that ASN planning and assessment processes are implemented at the earliest opportunity and are proactive, data-informed and tailored to individual needs. Recommendation 2 relates to communication and engagement, focusing on building trusting and inclusive partnerships, and in particular strengthening the collaboration with parents, families and carers and supporting them to be a planning partner, but also looking to build stronger collaboration across services and agencies to ensure that we best support the whole child. Recommendation 3 relates to workforce development and in particular developing and expanding ASN knowledge and ASL experience across all relevant roles to help us build and maintain a confident, skilled and stable workforce equipped to meet the diverse needs of children and young people with ASN. And lastly, recommendation 4 focuses on the learning environment and the creation of inclusive and adaptive spaces to ensure that the physical and sensory environments within our schools support all learners, particularly those with ASN. And the review highlighted the need to ensure that ASN is a factor in the longer term investment planning and design of the future school estate. In terms of the improvement actions, the Scrutiny Committee has stated that it is happy for those to be picked up as part of the wider ASN transformation programme and for progress to be monitored through the Transformation Governance Framework. The committee would, however, recommend that the learning from this review is also shared with Learning and Families Committee. And furthermore, since ASN does not exist solely within the school environment and continues well beyond school age, other services within the Council may wish to take on board some of the learning from this scrutiny review to inform practice within their own areas. And finally, on a personal note, I would like to thank the convener and the committee members, and in particular Bailey and Councillor Shares, for their leadership of this review, for all of your hard work and for their input and feedback into the preparation of this report. And of course to Miss Kirsten Molly here for keeping the review process on track and for always keeping me right. But we're happy to take any questions if you do have any.
Thank you very much, Lisa. So I'll turn over to questions then, and it looks like Councillor Forbes, you're up first. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Vice Convener. I appreciate Lisa's point that we were all embroiled in this right the way through, so there shouldn't be many questions, and indeed there probably won't be. But 8.6 refers to funding, and it seems to me that we're going to need some more money. I think that's a fact. With more children having ASN to the point that at some point soon we'll reach the point where everybody has ASN. Where's that money going to come from? Will we find it from our resources, or do you think Scottish Government have got some more money for us?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Forbes. I think I was going to say in conclusion to this that one of the good news stories from this for me is the fact that we found adjustments that don't necessarily cost a huge amount more money. They're operational changes, perhaps. That was my view on that question, and the political aspect of it, perhaps. But I'll hand over to others to answer it from the officer point of view.
I think it's a fair point in the respect of the level of need, and I think that's recognised in a number of other reports that have come nationally, and in particular the Audit Scotland report that recently reported to the Scottish Government. It wouldn't be for me to comment in terms of what the response to that report is likely to be at a national level. That's not conversations that we would be involved in, but we will continue to work within the budget that we currently have to look, as Bailey has indicated there, to see where we absolutely can make the resources that we have be as impactful as possible with within the structures that we have, and we'll continue to work with that, but always would welcome additional resource.
Next question to Councillor Braun on the video link. Thanks.
Thanks, Bailey. As you know, I'm not a regular member of this committee, nor do I sit on Learning and Families, so I'm pretty much an outsider on this subject, to be honest. I would like to thank officers for the work on this. It's an important subject, a difficult one, I'm sure, and obviously the committee and my colleague, Councillor Shires, and yourself, Bailey. So my question comes down to this. Reading through the report, we talk about a significant rise in ASN, and further on, for whatever reasons. My question, as I'm an outsider looking in on this, so it may have been asked before, but is there some fundamental cause, something that we're not seeing that's causing this rise, a significant rise as we talk about in ASN, and is it something that's reflected across the whole of the UK?
Thank you, Councillor Braun, and no worries. Scrutiny by informed outsiders is always more than welcome. Let me hand your question over to officers to respond.
And your question is one that has been asked by councillors, both in this committee but in other forums that we have that are also looking at additional support for learning. Our Educational Psychology Service has therefore pulled together a review of information that's available around what might be contributing to the rise, and there is no one explanation for what we are seeing and what we're experiencing, both within Perth and Kinross and across the country. So I think I could assure you that other local authorities within Scotland and within the UK as a whole are all experiencing the same challenges, and we will see that reflected in national media coverage on a regular basis. There are a number of different aspects that may have some contribution to it, one being advances in medical science that's allowing or enabling children who are born prematurely to survive, but quite often that can have consequences in terms of some additional support needs for the future. Not always, but in some situations. There is research looking at whether there are environmental aspects that are contributing to it. And we also know that there are probably some developments that just in terms of society, in terms of genetics, etc., that may contribute. But there is no one explanation for what may be causing the significant increase. The other aspect of this is that there's also recognition that there's probably greater acknowledgement and recognition of additional support needs. Parents may feel less stigma in terms of coming forward to seek assessment and recognition. Because I think that we can all recognise that reflecting back in our own childhoods, perhaps there were more young people at that time who had additional support needs who maybe didn't necessarily have that recognised at the time.
Thank you. And I think Ms Simpson wanted to come in as well.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with everything that Fiona Mackay has just said. But I think the other thing that might be important just for you, Councillor Braun, in terms of you not being involved in all of the discussion, is that the definition of additional support needs is so broad. And it's not something, it doesn't necessarily have to be a condition that has a diagnosis. It's about what are the barriers to a child or young person's learning. So that can be anything from not having English as your native language through to the most complex of needs. So I think that's also a factor as well, just in terms of the inclusivity and the breadth of what falls within the definition of ASN and therefore requires support for learning.
Thank you for the answer for both of you. Thank you very much. As an outsider, it's a learning curve, so thank you very much. Sorry to make you do a repeat run, but thanks for that.
It's always good. Thank you then for the questions. Are there any further questions, members? Okay, there being no further questions, does anyone wish to make comment on the report? Councillor Forbes.
Yeah, thanks, Vice Convener. Just very quickly, as someone who sits on this committee, it's sometimes difficult to find things that we should be looking at, and I think we should thank Councillor Shires for recognising that this could be a potential problem coming down the line for us, and identifying that. I think the way we've all worked together on this has been a perfect example of cooperative working between members and officers, and I just want to put on record my thanks to all of the officers who gave us so much of their time, answered our many complex questions so diligently. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Vice Convener, and thank you for that report. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Caroline Shires originally, but overall, we really appreciate the thoroughness of the review. I personally attended Milnathorpe Primary School with my colleague, Councillor Forbes. We were welcome. We had a deep and enjoyable discussion with the people we engaged with there. ASN is a far more complex issue than the one I envisaged before embarking on this journey. I hope we see significant progress as we move forward on some of the areas highlighted in the paper. Unfortunately, pressure of work has kept me from further visitation involvement, but I've really enjoyed the exposure and the findings from the review. I'm really grateful for the support of Fiona, Kirsten and Jacqueline and their teams throughout. This is really important review as we see the significant rise in ASN for the varying reasons we have identified. I look forward to watching, and hopefully this review will go some way to help as our teachers, our educational professionals strive to make sure that our youngsters are educated to the best possible attainment levels, sometimes in really challenging circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Robertson next, please.
Thank you, Bailey. I found this a very interesting and challenging experience to have gone through this process, and I'm appreciative of being able to have been part of it. Many people looking at reading this report will be alarmed to think that nearly 40% of our young people are identified as having additional support needs. I'll look on that as a positive thing, because I think it's reassuring to know that we are picking up children that have got issues and problems in their learning at school and how to adapt and go through the schooling process. Many of the people that are identified with additional support needs, it's not a permanent thing. It's just they've identified they've got an issue at a certain time, and as someone said about someone, English is their second language, and it's important that we have a scheme and a process to go through that actually helps them get the most out of their educational time in Perth and Kinross. So I think it's a very good report, and I've appreciated all the help and advice given to us by our officers in bringing it to where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Pardon me. Councillor Welch next, please.
I'd like to echo some of the comments made in terms of thank you to officers for bringing forward this report and the collaborative way which we all work together to look into what is a hugely sort of challenging area. I think I'd also like to put on record that in essence, getting this right has huge impacts for not only the young people themselves, but their families, and also for our hardworking sort of teaching staff who are at all times seeking to ensure that every child has the best opportunity to ultimately be the best that they can be. So, and that is teaching staff, teachers themselves, head teachers, and teaching support staff. They all have to work very closely together to ensure the best outcomes. So I think this was a very valuable piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, there not being any further comments, I'll make some concluding remarks. So I'd like to also add my tremendous note of thanks to all officers who've assisted us through this very thorough scrutiny process, especially Fiona and Jacqueline to my left here, Susie, who's not with us today from the educational psychology team, Kirsten, and of course Lisa as well. I'd also like to recognise and thank the many others who've contributed. That's included dozens of school staff, dozens of parents, especially those who participated via Parent to Parent, the ASN Parent Network, Perth ADHD and Perth Autism Support, and the staff and management of those charities as well. Thank you. I was keen that in this review we did more than just point at problems and pile them onto other busy people's desks to resolve. And by working together apolitically and across so many teams at the council, we've identified some really specific issues and recommended solutions to those. So thank you to all of the elected members who took an active role in this. Most significantly, thank you in her absence to Councillor Shires for initiating this process at the beginning. The main findings, and I think the most important factors for the ASN review for me, were as follows. First of all, we learnt about the varying levels of training amongst school staff, and that's teaching as well as the support staff on ASN. We have to do better as a local authority or an educational authority, both in the training we offer and also in asking about additional support for learning skills and competencies during recruitment. We learnt a lot about the challenges around how child's plan data is updated, shared with parents and children, and implemented over time, especially at transition points. We learnt as well that the delays in therapeutic treatments mean that the education system often has to work with children who are waiting long periods of time to benefit from the treatments that can help them better engage with the learning environment. I'm happy, though, that we've been able to identify these areas for more improvement. In this day and age of constrained budgets, I'm happy that we're bringing forward a report that doesn't simply demand more resource and move on, that this piece of work report points towards improvements that don't cost the earth and are quite pragmatic in many cases and will have a dramatic impact on the outcomes for our children. The role of scrutiny is such that our job is to find issues and suggest changes, but it's not within our powers to enact those changes. However, I'm confident that others will take this work forward, and I look forward to it being reported to the Learning Families Committee in due course. If committee are content to do so, then I move that we approve the report's recommendation, with one addition to the extent that it would be great to have this committee receive a brief progress review summary report in 1 and then 2 years' time from now. Is the committee agreeable to that? Agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Convener. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Vice Convener. Thanks to Fiona and Jacqueline as well. We'll let you head off if you want. Thanks very much, committee. We'll proceed to item 6 on the agenda, which is the review of Perth and Ross Council support to community-led development projects involving regeneration of key buildings. I'm joined, or we are joined, by Serge Marone, Strategic Lead for Economy, Development and Planning, by Steve MacDonald, who's our Economic Development Manager, and by Thomas Waterworth, who's our Vacant Property Development Officer. I think I'm going to invite Mr. MacDonald to introduce the report.
Great, thank you, Convener, and good morning, members. So the purpose of this report is to review the support provided by Perth and Kinross Council to community-led development projects involving the regeneration of key buildings and significant physical assets. The report evaluates past and current interventions, identifies successes and lessons learnt through case studies, and proposes actionable recommendations and proposals to support future-led community regeneration efforts. The Council's involvement in such initiatives is guided by legislative provisions set out in the report. We also recognise the importance of community-led regeneration to empower communities, enhance place and stimulate local economies. It has been recommended that committee consider and comment on the contents of the report, approve the findings of the report and request that the Strategic Lead for Economy Development Planning and the Strategic Lead for Housing and Communities develop a framework to be used for future support of community-led regeneration projects and report back to the relevant committee when complete, and arrange a further workshop with members of the Scrutiny and Performance Committee on vacant and eyesore properties. Thomas and I are happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Members, have we got, so we've had some workshops on this and had some input into the report ourselves, but are there any questions for officers on the report? I'm not seeing anything. Okay. I'm content with the report. I'll invite comments then. Any comments on the report? No? Members then, are we content to agree the content of the report and the recommendations as laid out, which were to, consider the contents of the report, approve the findings and request a framework be developed to be used for future support of community-led regeneration, reporting back to the relevant committee when complete, and then arranging a further workshop with members of the committee addressing the specific issue of vacant and eyesore properties. Agreed? Thank you very much. That was extraordinarily easy for the economic development team there. I'll let you step down from the platform then and carry on, Serge, with getting that framework in place. We'll move on then to item 7 on the agenda, which is the annual governance statement for 24-25. Miss Simpson, this is your report. Do you want to introduce it, please?
Convener. Maybe a second to leave. Are you going to stay? They're just going to keep me company for the annual governance statement. Convener, Vice Convener and Councillors, this is the draft annual governance statement which we are obliged to attach to our annual draft accounts, which will be presented to the Audit and Risk Committee. We have an extensive assurance process as part of the preparation for this statement, and I would like to thank Jacqueline Clark, our Chief Internal Auditor, who has supported and led on this process on my behalf. The purpose of the report is to provide assurance, not just to yourselves, but also to the organisation, the officers, to senior leadership and to the general public as to our internal controls across the council. I'm happy to report that our controls, we are satisfied, are adequate and appropriate. That is not to say that there is no risk, because with an organisation this size and the complexity of business, there will always be risk indeed, but the control measures that we have in place across all processes are satisfactory in terms of providing you with assurance that our governance framework is robust. I am happy to take any particular questions on this, if there are any, and I'm happy to take any feedback, any comments on that, if you wish.
Thank you very much. And first question is Councillor Ford.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate that there will always be risk in an organisation this size, but if I could ask you, has anything changed since the last time this was done that would reduce the level of risk, which we know will always be there?
I don't think in terms of the complexity of the business that there's much that would happen to reduce the level of risk. I think there's some areas where the level of risk will increase, and that is particular around cyber and information security and just, you know, the risks that come with the use of technology. So that will be a focus for officers going forward. And indeed, you know, that the cyber security report is a private paper coming at the end of this, so we can perhaps explore what some of those risks look like. But in terms of the risk landscape, the complexity of the business as such is that the risk level is fairly static across the piece, even with extensive risk protocols and mitigation measures in place. There are certain risks that will just always be quite high to manage.
Are there any other questions on the annual governance statement? Not seeing any. Are there any comments then on the annual governance statement? Councillor Braun.
Thank you, Convener. Just having to unmute myself. Sorry about that. Just a quick comment. Good governance is essential to maintain the confidence of all those that we work for, namely the residents of Perth and Kinross, and our duty is to them. In some ways, we are a business, and whilst we may operate like one, we are in reality a service. Like all businesses, we face very challenging times. And while legally we have no shareholders and seek no profits to pay dividends, in reality, we do have shareholders, and they are the people who live in Perth and Kinross, and each of whom has effectively one share. And like all businesses, good governance, ethics, and above all transparency in its workings, in itself and all subsidiaries and associations maintains that confidence, which in turn reflects the high standards that we do have and must continue to have. I'd like to thank all our officers for their part, big or small, which helps provide such a strong governance framework that we see today. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you very much, Councillor Braun. Are there any further comments from the committee? If not, can we note the assurance provided as the adequacy and effectiveness of the council's governance arrangements, including the system of internal control? Thank you very much, members. Members will proceed to item 8 on the agenda, which is the arm's length external organisations' current financial positions. This is the interim reporting. So we heard in person with presentations from each of the LEOs at the last meeting, and I think we'll do so again at the next meeting. This is just the interim reporting and financial positions. We've got Karen Johnson online, who is the
Karen is the ALIO Contracting Monitoring Officer. I think I got that right.
Thanks very much. It was just escaping me there for a moment. The LEO Contracting and Contractor Monitoring Officer, to answer any questions. Members, we've had the reports circulated. Are there any questions about the LEO current financial positions? Councillor Forbes.
Yeah, just first of all, this was a late paper. What was the reason for that?
Karen?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, convener. Sorry, thank you. Sorry, can I just clarify the question from Councillor Forbes? It was a late paper.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was a reason for that, and then I do have a more vague but slightly more general question on the paper as well.
In the respect of it being a late paper, it was always to be submitted, the reporting. There was a delay in the respect that we needed consistency in the reporting for the end of the financial year, and so CPK had actually provided figures for April, but we had wanted them all to be from March, so that was why that one was a bit later, but they were always to be on the agenda.
No, that's fine. I appreciate the explanation. Thank you. If I can ask you a maybe more general question about them. I'm only speak for myself, but I'm not a financial expert. So studying these and being able to find anomalies within them is beyond the scope of my ability. So given you're the expert, can we just ask you a pretty straightforward question? Do you think everything is correct and appropriate in these papers?
Yes, absolutely. We carry out regular reviews, and we have quarterly monitoring meetings, and I also receive the reporting every month from all 3 of the ALIOs and look at any, as you say, anomalies or anything, and everything is always answered fully. There's good narrative to back up all of the reports. So yes, as far as I'm concerned, everything is as it should be at this point. Some of the information is slightly in a draft form, with it being year end. So there may be some slight tweaks and adjustments, but nothing that they've told me would be that significant.
Well, I'm happy with that because, as I say, we're not experts in this. So our role, I think, here is to make sure we get the right staff doing the right job. And if you're happy with everything you've seen, then I think, speaking personally, I'm also happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councillor Allen, you've got a question.
Thank you. There's just a general question. The current financial position, as is shown on the chart that's been presented, there's lots of red on it. I just wonder if your view is that we can move towards black going forward. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. I think as well, there is always good narrative to explain why some of the areas may be red. So there may be, whether that be in a revenue term, income term, or whether that be an expenditure term, there is always good reasoning behind it. And as they are in red, I do always probe to try and get the information that we need as we monitor. But certainly I know that all 3 ALIOs are very diligent in their controls in finance, and they will also be working towards any of those reds becoming black.
Not seeing any further questions coming through. Okay, so can we note the current financial position for the arm's length external organisations? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Okay, members, we'll move on to item 9 on the agenda, which is the Perth and Kinross Health and Social Care Partnership Clinical and Governance Assurance Report. This is just an agenda note to say that the Care and Professional Governance Forum meetings were held on the 6th of March, 11th of April and 9th of May, and there were no social work or social care issues escalated for exception reporting. So can we just note that position, and then at the next meeting we will get the fuller report as usual every second cycle. Are we okay to note that? Thank you very much. Members, item P1 on the agenda is the annual review of cyber security. As we've said every year, the Vice Convener and I are not fans of holding private discussions, but we are willing to make an exception for this paper. But we do have to formally agree that we can hear item P1 in private, it being exempt not for publication by virtue of section 30 of the Freedom of Information Act, and I think also maybe the Prevention and Detection of Crime in relation to the Local Government Scotland Act. So can we hear the next item in private? Okay, thank you. Members, understand that the officers, and just for the benefit of those online, understand that we have raced through the agenda so quickly this morning that the officers who are going to present this report are currently in an interview process. So if we move over to the private chat, and we will get the officers here as quickly as possible. But thank you very much for racing through the agenda. I'm sure that's much appreciated by all officers. Members, we'll close the public part of the meeting now. Thank you.